Hello, guys. I got a couple things to talk about. The first thing to talk about, my pick of the week for crypto, Aerodome. Why Aerodome? Well, it's going to be the main DEX on base. And think about it, the main DEX on base or the main DEX on any of these L2s or major L1s will actually be pretty big. But Aerodome is in a special position that makes it even better than the others. You know why? Because base doesn't actually have a coin in itself. So, for like the other L1s and L2s, the first coin that people go to think of buying is the coin of the network itself. But since base doesn't have one, people need some way to get into it. Bam, you got Aerodome. So as long as base doesn't have a coin, Aerodome kind of takes that place instead of buying base, because you can't buy it unless you buy Coinbase the stock. But then you can't really use Coinbase the stock in DeFi. So that's not really an option. So if you want to do DeFi, if you want to swap, what's like the base coin that you swap in for base? It's probably going to end up being Aerodome. And it's going to be supported by Coinbase, and they're going to push it. And the market cap right now for Aerodome is not that big. It is indeed only $266 million. Yes, I know fully diluted it's 1.35 billion, but even that's not that much. And I'm not really sure of Aerodome's release schedule, but I'm pretty sure they're not going to release all their coins at once. And, Aerodome had just come out a short while ago. And I think it's going to experience kind of like a rapid rate of increase, basically in terms of price. It's already increased by over 1,000%, obviously. But at 266 million, that's not a lot for a major DEX of what I believe will be the largest L2 out there in base. And with Coinbase's support, it could even rival Uniswap someday. Now, it's going to be a while before it rivals Uniswap, but it could possibly do so given some time. Because it is entirely on base, the fees are going to be a lot better. Uniswap's market cap is at 4.02 billion. It's only 266 million right now. It's about 16x what it is right now. And that's Uniswap, not during the bull run, but like pre-bull run prices. Obviously, you really do have to be careful about the dilution because only about 20% of the coin is out, if even that. So there could be a lot of dilution. But I think if you're looking for a DEX on a network that's already getting a lot of traction, Aerodome is the way to go at this point. So I would have it as my pretty much go-to coin if you have extra money to actually buy at this point, because I think it deserves to be way more than $266.21 million. And let's not forget, a lot of the meme coins are going to Aerodome, right? Or going to base right now, which means base is getting more and more popular. There was an article today about how meme coins are onboarding a lot of people to these networks. And that's definitely true because it gets a lot of new people onto these networks. Base is going to build up liquidity. Some of them are going to stick around for the DeFi. They're going to get used to swapping on base. And base is developing a big ecosystem for itself. So this is probably going to be the main coin that base users kind of gather around. It's going to be the main coin maybe that people use to swap in and out of base because base, once again, doesn't have a coin in itself. At $266 million, I do believe that is a fairly low market cap for this coin. I believe it can go up to several billion. Even without releasing most of the supply. And I don't think the entire supply is going to be released in the next year. So I do believe Aerodome is definitely a coin that you should look at. Ripple has filed an opposition to the $2 billion the SEC wants, and they say they shouldn't have to pay more than $10 million. So you got $10 million on one side, $2 billion on the other side. Obviously, that's a big difference. My guess is the penalty is going to be closer to Ripple's amount because the amount the SEC is looking for is absolutely ridiculous. So San Francisco-based company Ripple argues that civil penalty should not exceed $10 million. So basically, last month, the SEC requested injunctive relief, civil penalties, and disgorgement of profits in the Ripple case. The embattled company, which is best known for association with XRP cryptocurrency, might be forced to fork out a whopping $2 billion. But generally you go for like a sky high payment amount and then you whittle it down from there. Remember for LBRY, they got like 1% of their asking amount because LBRY didn't have that much money. That's not this case because Ripple actually has that money, but Ripple wants to pay only $10 million. So in its motion, the SEC argued that such an exorbitant sum was justified due to the reckless nature of the company's conduct and repeated violations of security laws. I don't really know. In the end, they only ruled that sales to institutions were securities, and the rest of it wasn't securities. And the Coinbase lawsuit for the SEC is not going all that well. And Ripple is arguing that they didn't really do that much damage. And they've actually won a lot of the class action lawsuits from various investors. So I don't think the SEC is going to get anywhere near what they're asking for. However, in its most recent filing, Ripple argues that the SEC has the burden to come forward with positive proof that the company is going to violate the law again in the future. Which, like now that they know what it is, they're not going to violate it. Furthermore, it argues that its financial sales do not show reckless disregard for the law because they have actually been working with regulators. The SEC is going on a scorched earth policy, which I don't think will end up working very well for the SEC, obviously. And I think they're going to end up getting a lot less than they asked for. The company claims that any injunctive relief should be narrow and tailored. Furthermore, according to Ripple, the SEC fails to show that any disgorgement is warranted, arguing that its institutional sales caused no pecuniary harm. So basically, I don't know if their institutional sales actually harmed anyone. And I think the SEC is going to have a very, very tough time proving that. A lot is actually riding on this case, not only for Ripple, but for the rest of the industry as well, because this could actually serve as a precedent for how much those other companies will owe once the SEC gets to suing them. If the SEC doesn't even get enough to cover its legal costs, then, it may not be worth it for the SEC to continue suing all these companies, which is kind of what I'm hoping for. The court should deny the SEC's request for an injunction for disgorgement and for prejudgment interest and should impose a civil penalty of no more than $10 million because they really didn't do all that damage. It's not like FTX where they lost everyone's money. The money is still there. And I'm going to guess most of these institutions actually bought lower than what the price of Ripple is right now. So they didn't really suffer any losses really along the way. So I do think it's going to come out more in favor of Ripple than the SEC, and it's going to ripple across the rest of the industry as well. So that's what I have for my thoughts on that. And of course, we could reach 75K in as little as a week because the Hong Kong ETF is going to open for trading probably next Monday. Remember, there's about a 2-week window between when the ETF actually gets accepted and when it actually gets listed, because there's paperwork and it actually has to get the listing before people can buy. So it should open next Monday because it got approved last Monday. How much money will flow in? We don't really know. I've been hearing numbers anywhere from 2 billion to 24 billion. Obviously, that's not going to all flow in at once, but there was a lot of interest in China for this ETF. So I'm guessing there's going to be significant buys once it opens. And although all of China won't be coming in, there's a lot of really rich Chinese businessmen that go through Hong Kong, and they might actually want to hedge against things with Bitcoin. I think and Ethereum, of course. So there could be a pump in Bitcoin and Ethereum come next week. Hopefully it can nudge us past 75K. Now, the US ETF took us from 40 something K to 70K. The Hong Kong ETF is not going to have that big of an effect because there's not as much money involved. But the other point is the Hong Kong ETF won't be accompanied by a giant FTX sell-off. So that's also going to be different. And there's no Genesis case with it too. It's just basically all inflow. Nothing's going to be outflowing to inflow with the Hong Kong ETF. It's just going to be people buying. So that's really nice. And Ethereum will see some inflows as well. So you could see a positive movement in the crypto market come next week towards the end of the month. We're hoping to break 75K by the end of the month. I know that's kind of a high figure right now, considering we're only at 66, and we would have to raise by more than $1,000 a day. But it is definitely possible to achieve those numbers. They're a little optimistic, and I definitely wouldn't bet on them, but it's not like they're crazy and unachievable. And of course, I think there's going to be more and more funds coming into Bitcoin. There's wealth management funds waiting for that grace period to end. Not like grace period, but that timeout period where they can't invest in these coins to end. And because a lot of these funds aren't really allowed to invest in these REIT products unless they've been out in the market for a while. So after 3 or 6 months, they're going to come in as well. But the Hong Kong thing might bridge the gap and get us to 75 or 80K. And that's really what I'm hoping for from this fund. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe. Hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.